say welcome back to another video. Now this is going to be a kind of a breakdown here of an enhancement shaman build, playing a little more of an unorthodox setup than what you would usually see right now. Currently, the main meta, if you guys play enhancement at all, Doom Winds is basically what everybody runs. I ended up looking up the highest rated RBG enhancement shaman, and this is the build that he or she was running, and I kind of went to mess around with this to kind of try and figure out how it works, and I really like it and felt like I should do a video explaining it. There's a lot of content on this Doomwind setup because that's like the meta quote unquote build, and so I wanted to make a video kind of going over this setup because the setup's really fun and there's not hardly anything out there really explaining how this works and all of that fun stuff. So with that being said, we are running Witch Doctor's Wolf Bones. This is a big part of how this build really actually works. Witch Doctors, for those of you guys that don't know, increases the chance that you're going to gain Maelstrom by 3%, as well as every time you gain Maelstrom, you reduce your Spirit Wolves by 2 seconds. What ends up happening is you run Elemental Spirits with this build, as this already reduces the cooldown of your Spirit Wolves by a lot, and then also gives them, like, you know, abilities, right? Like passives. Basically, you get either an amp, a little bit of like a damage amp on your lava lash. You either get a damage amp on your Wind Fury and Storm Strike, or you get like a chance to slow on hit. There's 3 just random effects that can occur based on whatever 2 wolves you get when you summon out. When you run this talent with this legendary, your wolves end up being like sub 1 minute. It's very low cooldown. These are up probably like 60% of the time. They're up, like, it feels like they're up like a ton. The other thing that's really important to understand with this is that when your wolves are up, you generate 1 stack of Maelstrom immediately, and then you generate another stack every 3 seconds for their duration. So this, in combination with an increased chance to get Maelstrom, having wolves up more often, means that you basically are able to generate just an insane amount of Maelstrom. This allows you to cast way more than without running this setup, just over like longer fights, allows you to heal way more, and all of that fun stuff. Now, Stormkeeper is not a necessity with this build, but I would say Elemental Blast is. The rest of this stuff, Storm Fury, is pretty straightforward. A lot of people run Earth Shield. I just have been running Spirit Wolf, but you definitely can run Earth Shield here. This is not make or break. Elemental Assault, pretty straightforward. Nature's Guardian, pretty straightforward. The only thing that's really up for contention here is Force Winds versus Elemental Blast, Stormkeeper versus Sundering, and this bottom row. You could make an argument for any of these points. The thing that's really nice about this build with this setup and running Elemental Spirits is that your burst, or your kind of your big damage, is based on having your wolves up, because you're able to generate a lot of Maelstrom and you're doing a lot of damage via the spells that you're doing, or outputting just a ton of healing if that's what you're doing. And it's not a 3-minute cooldown. The only downside with Ascendance is it's insanely strong when you have it up for that window of time, but it's a 3-minute cooldown. If you get CC during that time, if a target, you know, runs away and line of sights you or whatever, it makes this a very like high risk, high reward type scenario, whereas this is much more consistent. Now, Stormkeeper is really nice in BG situations. I think if you were to play this build in arenas, I do think Sundering is better. However, Stormkeeper paired with being able to do like a 5 Maelstrom Chain Harvest and have like this massive AoE cleave is very satisfying. We'll see if we can pull that off in this BG, but that's, I think, a big reason why we're running this. This is a reduced damage amp in PvP compared to what this tooltip says. I think it's 230% in PvP. So it's not as strong as it reads in this tooltip, but it's still very good. Now, the last thing to really mention here is Elemental Blast. This is very strong and ends up hitting so hard with this build and this setup. It's like, I get like 14, 15k crits with my current gear. My gear is not very good. This just hits like a truck. And so basically what I've been doing playstyle wise is trying to save so that I always have 5 Maelstrom when Elemental Blast is coming up, and then basically using that 5 to 10 Maelstrom weapon stacks to buffer my time in between. If I start overcapping, I can either Lightning Bolt, Chain Lightning, or Stormkeeper to basically not over cap on my Maelstrom, or if I need to for survivability, I can heal myself or heal an ally via like a mouse over macro. So that's kind of the general play style of what you're doing. Your wolves are up all the time. Your Maelstrom generation is really, really, really high. And so that's kind of the general gameplay. A huge portion of your damage comes from Elemental Blast, paired with your actual Storm Strike itself. Chain Harvest does a ton of damage as well. And your wolves do like a little bit as well. But that's kind of your main three is like your spenders, your Elemental Blast, Chain Lightning, Lightning Bolt are going to do a huge portion of your damage. Stormkeeper and Chain Harvest, as far as cooldowns, are also going to be dealing significant damage. Now, the last thing I want to talk about real quick is the conduits. This is kind of unique and a big part of why this build works so well. Maelstrom Weapon increases the damage dealt by your next spell by an additional 1.8% per stack. This basically is a 10% damage amp on all of our spenders. So this pairs very well with things like Elemental Blast because you're always using it with 5 Maelstrom, so you're basically always getting that damage amp. Now I'm also running the Chain Harvest crit chance. You could run something else, but this is what that person was running, and I've started to play with this, and I really like it a lot. It makes this just, these two in combination make your Chain Harvest just hit insanely hard, and it just feels like such a strong cooldown. On to the PvP talents here real quick. Swelling Waves doesn't really need too much to talk about, neither does Grounding. Those are pretty cookie cutter. Most people do run Shamanism, and you definitely could, but Thunder Charge ends up being actually very good. This is a really weird ability and took me a long time to kind of figure out exactly how this works or when you would be wanting to use it. But running this with Elemental Blast is really significant. If you read the tooltip of this, it says the cooldown recovery rate of all abilities is increased by 30% for 10 seconds. It is worded terribly. You can cast this on an ally the same way that the Heroism or Bloodlust buff works with Shamanism. But what happens is that when this ability fades, whatever cooldown reduction you got disappears. So the way that you get value from this ability is by using it with abilities that basically have less than a 10-second remainder on their cooldown, and you're reducing the cooldown by 3 seconds. So, for example, using this with things like Elemental Blast basically allow you to get a 30% faster recharge. So rather than it being a 12-second cooldown, it's going to be closer to like a 9-second cooldown, being able to use it in the right sequence. Now, I'm not very good at using this, but this is what that person that I had looked up was running, and I can see why this would be very strong. I could see this being very good with things like Rep Pallies being able to judge 30% faster for 10 seconds. Very, very similar in value to the Heroism buff, but it can't be dispelled, I don't think. I don't think it can be dispelled the same way because it's not like Bloodlust. So, again, when we go into these fights here, basically, we're going to drop Wolves as soon as we can, and then go into kind of the normal rotation. You still do want to keep your Wind Fury Totem down, but you mostly are wanting to keep it down for just the overall damage output and things like that. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and Elemental Blast here. You thought it was 7,500. I'm going to go ahead and Chain Harvest. I'm also going to Wall. Trinket that. Drop Wind Fury again. Stormkeeper. Elemental Blast. He's got like Pain Sub going. Oh man. Heal myself. Try and kick that. I think I missed the kick though. I'm going to heal myself one more time. I'm going to drop Stun Totem here. Wolves are back up again. Wolves again. Stunned again. I'm going to try and heal out of this. Heal. Elemental Blast. See, like Elemental Blasts are hitting for like 5k, 4, 5, 6, 7k, depending on how many cooldowns I have going. Now look at how much damage my Chain Harvest did. Normal hits for 8,700. That's with my current gear, like 197 eye level. Elemental Blast hitting pretty hard. You saw that we had a hit there for 7,400 non-crit. I did have my Blood Fury up and my on-use trinket. I have those macroed in. Oh, actually, I don't think I had my on-use trinket on use there. But I those should be macroed in with your wolves, is basically the general way that you want to play this. Do we have that macroed? If we didn't, we're going to. Yeah, maybe it just came back up off cooldown. But basically that's your kind of go, is every like minute-ish or less, you end up having these wolves to generate a ton of Maelstrom, giving you a ton of self-healing, a lot of elemental blast damage, and all that. So let's go ahead and we'll go here. Go ahead and kick that. I'm going to go ahead and grounding here. That's fade. Elemental blast, and we're going to chain harvest. 7,500 chain harvest. Kick the shadow mend. Lightning bolt. Nice. But yeah, so you guys are able to see kind of the playstyle here is very different. It's not like these big Ascendance burst windows. It's not like, it's not, you know, big Wind Fury damage. It's more spell oriented. But the thing that's really cool with this setup is that, do I need to trinket this? No, I'm going to wall, wolves, heal. I'm going to cap totem here, heal again. He killed the cap totem. Go ahead and elemental blast. Is that a holy pally healing him? Wolves are back up. Heal myself here. I don't have chain harvest, so this might be kind of sketch. I'm into Healthstone. Dude, so many Hodges. Elemental blast, big 9k. Heal up again. I'm here though, so I can't elemental blast anymore, but we do have chain harvest. Big chain harvest. Bop. I'm gonna purge if I can. Oh, I have no mana. But like you can see how long we're surviving with 197 eye level is pretty impressive. Wolves are back up again. I'm going to die here though, but big chain lightning with the Stormbringer. Onk. Lay on hands. It's okay, it's worth a shot. But you get the idea. You're able to generate so much Maelstrom that you can just spend constantly. I'm still really, really new to Enhance Shaman, especially like in a PvP situation. I know that I'm capping on Maelstrom a lot. I still need to kind of get a better feel for how quickly I'm able to generate Maelstrom in which situations and how fast I should be using it. You really want to make sure you're saving Maelstrom for your Elemental Blast to make sure you always are basically able to use that off cooldown, rather than trying to use your lightning bolts, because if you look here, like right there, Elemental Blast hits for like 4,700. Lightning bolt will hit for like 2,500-ish, something like that. So it's almost twice as much. And even with chain lightning damage, just normal chain lightning, your Elemental Blast basically hits for the same amount on one target as chain lightning will on 3 targets. Elemental Blast is also going to be giving you that buff, whether it's like the crit or haste or mastery or whatever. The other thing to mention with this build or this playstyle, and I'm not sure how much this differs from the normal like Doomwind's setup. Like see right there, 7,500 with all of our stuff pop, 7,500 on the Elemental Blast. I don't know how much this changes compared to the Doomwind setup, but with this build, you basically want to go haste and or mastery. I think mastery is probably your best bet for overall damage output, because you're really kind of wanting to get big Elemental Blast and Chain Harvests off. And I know Elemental Blast, those scale, I think both of those scale equally, like off your mastery. And when you do connect, it's going to give you a higher chance to get like your procs and your Maelstrom and all that stuff because of the mastery, right? Wolves are back up again. I go ahead and heal myself, and I'm going to wall. Elemental Blast. I have Chain Harvest here after this. I'm going to actually go on this guy here. Trinket that. Kick that. Chain Harvest. Elemental Blast. He faded. Oh, see, I haven't even used my cool. That's so stupid. What did he hit me for right there? It was like half my health instantly. But you can see on the damage done, we're still doing pretty well. And I would be surprised if these other guys had as low eye level as I do. But you can see Chain Harvest, Elemental, and Storm Strike. And our Wolves are actually doing a good chunk of damage just from melee. But you can see basically every single engage, I have my Wolves up, which is huge. Just from how it feels from like a playstyle perspective, it's actually really satisfying being able to just constantly have Wolves up. Go ahead and heal here. Heals back up. Basically, every time you Storm Strike, it's just an instant heal or Elemental Blast, like over and over and over again. Go ahead and Grounding. I'm going to Cap Totem that. It might be a little bit late, though. Heal again. Elemental Blast. Oh, I think I did that into his like wall thing or his bop. We need to try. Let's go over to stables and see. But with this build and running this conduit, basically all your spenders. I mean, and I only have 184 eye level. If you had like the the higher eye level conduits, you'd be able to pump even harder. Prop Pally here again. We'll fight him again. He's gonna run away. It's a little interesting. Okay, it's kind of weird. But I have this set up, the Thunder, what's this thing called? Thunder Charge, as a mouse over. So in a perfect world, I'd have my raid frames down here. It's kind of hard when you're doing these, well, not like that. Like this. And then mouse over like our an ally. So I feel like it would be really good for warriors, ret pallies. I'm trying to think of like what else has anything that has a lot of short cooldowns. It's really strong because basically while it's up, they're getting 30% cooldown reduction. You also want to always be trying to, oh, that was sketchy. You want to try and always be nice. Casting your wolves like first, because when you like prior to storm striking, because your storm strike has such a high chance to generate maelstrom that's going to give you a lot of that's going to give you a lot of reduction on your wolves immediately every time you storm strike. Oh, we lost BS there. But in any teamfight situations, basically, if you build up to 10 Maelstrom, you can Stormbringer, Chain Harvest, Chain Lightning. And it's very, very, very solid cleave. Oh, no. Oh, no. Shoot. I literally was spamming Grounding. I wasted the global, though, early. You can see how hard that Elemental Blast is just chunking, though. Go ahead and Grounding here. I'm going to wall as well. Healing Stream. Purge the Altar Time. Hex this guy. Wolves are back up. So like I can Stormbringer here. Oh, I'm gonna die. Oh no. Yo. Ah. I didn't have shield wall up. But when you can get like, so I've been able to get around 5 or so K on each individual chain lightning from the Stormkeeper buff chain lightnings. So potentially you're getting, you know, 10 to 15K overall damage per one of those casts. This is a little more global intensive, like global cooldown intensive, because you have to cast the Stormkeeper. That's a global, and then you have to spend 2 more globals on the 2 chain lightnings. So I'm still a little torn if this is better, but I think if you're going a more mastery focused setup, I could see this being very, very good, where you're basically playing around this big burst that you have via your chain harvest and your Stormbringer chain lightning setup. Kick that. Elemental blast. Grounding. I don't have anyone here. I'm going to shield wall. I'm going to sit this. Kind of screwed. I don't have anything here. Trinket that. Run away. Go ahead and heal. Decurse myself. I need to drop this healing stream. Heal up again. Wolves are back up. I feel like I'm casting wolves just basically like on cooldown or pretty close to it though. I'm gonna swap to this guy. I'm slowed. Oh no. Fire mage with PI just unloading. But I'm still super new to the whole Enhance playstyle in general, and I know this is a pretty different setup from Doomwinds, just overall with like what you're prioritizing and kind of how the overall gameplay is. So I'm still kind of trying to learn and figure this out, but I feel like I got a real basic understanding of this build and how this person was playing it in these RBGs, and I can definitely see the value in it because your burst is still very high and pretty consistent, as you're not dependent on Ascendance being this big 3-minute cooldown. You have these much shorter burst windows. The dogs are also pretty helpful, like in these kind of bases or these kind of maps for like spinning flags and all that kind of stuff as well. You have a lot more off healing potential, I believe, than you do with the Doomwind setup, just because your Maelstrom generation is so much higher. So dogs here immediately, kick the Convoke. Nice. Chain Harvest on this guy. Oh, I forgot to cast Lightning Shield. Go ahead and Elemental Blast, 5K. But, so you get the idea, right? Even us being a total noob shaman, 600,000 healing as an Enhanced Shaman. 863. Dude, this Pally had 1 million damage in a million. That's so dumb. So dumb. But with, you know, with similar gear, oh, it's a prop Pally. With similar gear, I think you'd be in that similar play style, similar ballpark as far as being able to output a ton of healing via Chain Harvest, via your Healing Surge, and being able to use those really well, having a lot of awareness with, you know, your teammates and playing kind of that utility hybrid role very, very well with this build, being able to just generate a ton of Maelstrom. Elemental Blast is also really satisfying. It's real chunky. Pairing that with Storm Strike is a ton of damage, and having your wolves up all the time to be able to constantly have that as a cooldown you get to use rather than every 3 minutes, paired, you know, is Ascendance being the alternative, is pretty fun. So hopefully you guys can test this build out and try it and let me know what you think. I'm curious. I haven't really messed with this at all in PvE, so I am curious to try that as well and see how it does in PvE. I could see it also being really fun there. So we'll see. I'm going to keep gearing this tune up and keep messing around with this build. So I plan on posting some videos of this later if you guys are curious. Thanks so much for hanging out like always. Hit that sub button if you guys want to see any of this content in the future. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. See ya.